And Pierce, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is ANP2 lecture test 4, video 4, and we're in the middle of page 6 as shown by my trusty hot pink post-it, and there's the 6. So we're starting with the blood supply to the lungs. And the pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood, because we're in the pulmonary circuit. And as you recall, the pulmonary colors are backwards because arteries carry blood away from the heart, and the pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. And then capillary beds in the lungs, the pulmonary veins are red and carry oxygenated blood back to the heart, to the left atrium. Okay. So pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the exchange surface of the lungs. Gas exchange occurs at the alveolar capillaries, and these are the capillaries that are part of the respiratory membrane. Remember, they were part pneumocytes type 1 and fused basement membrane, and then the other cell was the capillary endothelium, and it's the capillary endothelium of the alveolar capillaries. And then pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood to Los Angeles. By that I mean left atrium, LA. What do the lungs have to do with the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system? I did try to warn you that we were going to come back to this, and here we are. And the reason is ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. In the lungs, angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. And the whole RAAS, renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, functions to regulate blood pressure and blood volume. Kidneys and the lungs work together. You may recall the antagonist for that, or from the heart, the ANP and BNP, the alpha and beta natriuretic peptides, as a review. We do have a final coming up. Ooh, speaking of which, we're in test 4 material of 6. So we have taken test 3 of 6. So we are halfway through the material. If you have also taken lab 2 of 4, then you are halfway through the lab material. And so while we are halfway through the material at this point, we are not yet halfway through the grade, because the final is such a large percentage of the grade. So double check your syllabus to see what the exact percentage is, but recall that we still need all this information again for the final. So if you have, okay, I know it's going to come out like a joke, but seriously, if you have a couple of extra hours on the weekends, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's worth your time to go through, especially now. It's at this halfway through the semester is a good time to pull out your filled in note sets from test 1, 2, and 3 and read through them again and see if there's more parts that fit together, if you have more questions, if some time has allowed some of the concepts to percolate through your brain and make more sense, which often happens. So sometimes you just need time to process, but you still need to review occasionally to get that material in your long-term storage so that it will show up for you on the final. Don't wait until the day of the final to cram. Okay, so all of that to say, moving on. How does the conducting portion of your lungs get oxygen and nutrients? They're supplied by the systemic circuit. From the thoracic aorta to the capillaries. And so you do have red arteries from the systemic circuit to feed these tissues that surround that make up the lung tissue. Okay. And they drain into the pulmonary veins, which are ordinarily blue. Okay, and here we have the pulmonary artery, which is blue, and the pulmonary vein, which is red, and these are in opposite positions in the lab model. But we're going based on the color. Blue here is going to be the pulmonary artery, and red is going to be the pulmonary vein. If I blink a third time, will you remember it? And a pulmonary embolism is a blockage of a branch of the pulmonary artery. Page 7. Probably faster to find the arrow on the... Okay, everything you ever wanted to know about the serous membranes of the lung, but we're afraid to ask. So here we have IRL, and here we have our drawing, simplified conceptual version. The parietal pleura is the outside layer. The pleural cavity is filled with pleural fluid. The visceral pleural fluid, and then the visceral pleura. Where's the visceral pleura? Is that like under my head or something? Okay, so the visceral pleura, is this effectively the surface of the lung itself. It's touching the lung itself. Okay, thoracentesis is a new term. That's when you take a sample of the pleural fluid, and usually you will do this from lower, like down here, because there's the pleural membranes go down a little further, so you can kind of sample down here without popping any lung tissue. Pleurisy is inflammation of the pleura. Again, these lungs change size and shape roughly 15-17 times a minute. And so this fluid inside is to reduce friction. When there are infections, the visceral pleura and parietal pleura in the healing process can become adhered together. You can form adhesions where they stick together like glue. And have I told you all the glue story? Okay, not right now. And they can make it difficult and painful to breathe because as your lungs are moving, it's pulling on those adhesions and it hurts. Okay. And active inflammations can also cause an increase in pleural secretions. Now, because the lungs are surrounded by the rib cage, the lungs can't, if this space fills with fluid, the lungs can't expand out into the rib cage. So what happens is it expands in as the fluid builds up here, and normally, gravity would be, at the bottom here, this will fill up. And then that will push the lung tissue up out of the way, decreasing your exchange surface. So pleurisy is an inflammation in the pleura with an increase in pleural secretions, which can decrease the effectiveness of your breathing because you're getting less oxygen to the bloodstream. Getting oxygen to the bloodstream is the whole point of the respiratory system, along with getting carbon dioxide out of the bloodstream. I know. Okay. Different parts of respiration. First, we have external respiration. External respiration is gas exchange between the blood and the air, and this happens at the alveoli. Okay. Next is internal respiration, which is gas exchange between the blood and the cells. And then cellular respiration is when the cells use the oxygen to make ATP and carbon dioxide. So the cellular respiration we will talk about again in test 5 when we talk about biochem and how to make ATP. And that is cellular respiration. The steps of external respiration. So external respiration has these 3 parts. First is pulmonary ventilation. That's getting the air into your lungs. It's what we call breathing. Getting the air in and out of the lungs, technically. Gas diffusion is diffusing the gas across the respiratory membrane from the alveoli into the bloodstream. And then transport, of course, is your cardiovascular part, where the oxygen-rich blood is transported through the systemic circuit. Hypoxia, I thought we'd already said these terms, but hypo means low, oxia for oxygen. And for no, oxia for oxygen. So hypoxia is low oxygen, anoxia is no oxygen. Next slide. Okay. Ooh, Boyle's law. Pulmonary ventilation. The primary function of pulmonary ventilation is alveolar ventilation. The whole point of putting air in your lungs is to get that air to the alveoli so that the gas exchange can take place across the respiratory membrane. The atmospheric pressure, ATM, not like the cash machine ATM, but like an atmosphere ATM, is the weight of the air at sea level. This is 760, that's a 7, millimeters mercury. And no, I don't remember off the top of my head why inch G is mercury. Hygronium or something, I don't know. And that equals 1 atmosphere. There we go. Can you compress a liquid? No. I mean, industrial scale, yes. But like the heart pressurizes the liquid, but not really compress. Yeah. Yes, but no, not really. Can you compress a gas? Oh yeah, of course. What happens to the pressure of a gas when you compress it? It increases. So when volume decreases, pressure increases. And when the volume increases, pressure decreases. This is called Boyle's law and is written P equals 1 over V, or sometimes P is inversely proportional to 1 over V. So inversely proportional means that when the P goes up, the V goes down. When the P goes down, the V goes up. The V goes up, the P goes down, the V goes... I lost track already. Okay, so that is Boyle's law and that they're inversely proportional. So let me move my picture out of the way and I will show you. Hello, hello. Okay, so here is your gas. Where'd my pen go? Okay, so these are gas molecules in the box. And at a specific temperature, they move around at a specific rate. So at that specific temperature, that specific rate, and at this specific time period, they will bounce off the walls this many times. And the molecules bouncing off the walls is gas pressure. Okay. So if you take the same closed container, don't let any of the molecules out, but make the container smaller, the same temperature, the same number of molecules are going to hit the sides of the walls more often, more times. And this is when you decrease the volume, you increase the pressure. And the pressure is the molecules hitting the sides. And when the sides are closer together, they're going to get hit more often, even when molecules are going at the same speed. So same closed container, increase the volume, same number of dots. And now same temperature, so we're going the same speed. If you heat it up, they'll go faster, and that will increase pressure. But this is at the same speed, and now we've only hit the side 1, 2, 3, 4 times instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. Still 4 times. But you've decreased the pressure because you've increased the volume. And here you've increased the pressure because you've decreased the volume. So with the same number of molecules but more space, it just takes longer to hit the sides. Okay. So when you double the volume, you have the pressure. When you have the volume, you double the pressure. And then we have our most important concept for all of respiration. Air flows from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. If you blow air into a balloon, like to start the balloon, you have to overcome that first resistance. And you can only blow air into the balloon when the air in you is at a higher pressure than the air in the balloon. And then what happens if you take the balloon and you haven't tied it off and it's full of air and you let go? You've created an area of high pressure inside the balloon, and you let go of, and the area around the balloon is an area of low pressure. So you let go of the neck of the balloon and it flies around. I should buy balloons. Balloons are fun. So air flows from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure, just like in cardiovascular. The blood moved from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. Same thing. Okay, so a single respiratory cycle is one inspiration and one expiration. These words are, they both have other meanings. Inspiration, it makes you do better. Expiration is when you die. So I tend to try to go with inhalation and exhalation, but inspiration and expiration are also proper terms. So inhalation, when you inhale, and we sort of mentioned this a little bit before, when you inhale, the diaphragm is a dome. It's a skeletal muscle. And when it contracts, when any muscle contracts, it gets shorter. You contract your bicep, it gets shorter. So when this dome muscle contracts, it gets smaller. The dome goes down. And as the dome moves down because of the fluid pressure, the bottom of the lungs move down also. And when the lungs move down, that increases the volume. And when you increase the volume, increase volume equals decreased pressure. So when we increase the volume by inhaling, by moving, contracting the diaphragm and moving it down, and also moving the ribs out, they go up and out like a bucket handle, which I can't draw. And so that increase in volume causes a decrease in pressure. And air flows from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. And when you inhale and contract that diaphragm, you create a larger volume with a lower pressure. And so the air is pulled in to the lungs. Okay, this picture shows up on the test. So I want you to know exactly what that means. That means greater than. It's another math term. Now, because we read in English from left to right, greater than is referring to the bigger one. So this is like Pac-Man, is eating the bigger number. The pressure outside is bigger than the pressure inside, so air is moving in. It's inhalation. Increase volume, decrease pressure, pull air into the lungs. Exhalation does the opposite. When the diaphragm moves back, the rib cage moves back. That decreases the volume, which increases the pressure. And air flows from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. So the air flows out and you exhale. And that happens because the pressure outside is less than. Which again is talking about the number to the left because we read left to right. This number, pressure outside, is less than the pressure inside. Oh, and the P means pressure. And if it's subscript, it's describing which pressure. So pressure subscript outside, pressure subscript inside. Excuse me. Did I put the timer on this time? Feels like I've been talking for a while. I did not. Okay, so exhalation, decrease the volume of the lungs, increase the pressure, push air out of the lungs. So that's how you exhale. Why do the visceral and parietal pleura stick together? The fluid bond is why. It makes the surface of the lungs stick to the inner body wall and the top of the diaphragm. So if you've ever had a drink on a real smooth table and it sweats, condensation happens on the outside of it and it kind of pools and there's a little puddle of water there and you can't pull it straight up, it has created a fluid bond. Or you take two thin sheets of plastic and you get them wet and try to pull them straight apart, it will not happen. Now you can slide them this way, and with your drink you can tip it and break the suction, and then it's not connected to the table or bar top at all. But the fluid bond is an important concept of how you actually manage to breathe, which is super handy. Breathing is a good thing. It's a goal. Okay. Yeah, we're going to finish this part, this middle part of the page. So the changing the volume of the lungs. First bullet, when the diaphragm contracts, and this is everything I just said, but this is where I have it written down. So the first bullet, we have a couple things here. The diaphragm contracts, which moves it down, and that pulls the lungs down, which increases the volume, which decreases the pressure, which pulls air into the lungs. Now when the diaphragm relaxes, same bullet. The lungs move up, which decreases the volume, increases the pressure, pushes the air out. Second bullet is the rib cage. When the rib cage expands, that increases the volume, decreases the pressure, pulls the air into the lungs. When the rib cage gets smaller, that decreases the volume, increases the pressure, pushes air out, causes you to exhale. And then this part up here, there we go. When the pressure outside and the pressure inside are the same, equal, there's no movement. Because air only moves from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. And if the pressure is equal, equivalent, the same, there's no air moving. Inhalation, the air is pulled in. Exhalation, the air is pushed out. I think I have slides for these. Okay. Oh, here's the bucket. So when you lift the bucket handle, just like when you inhale, your ribs go up but also out at the same time. Is the first bullet diaphragm, all of that. Second bullet rib cage, all of this. And then I think I have another slide after this one that works with this next thing. Okay. So here, at rest, pressures are equal. Also, this picture is on the test. Inhalation, you increase the volume, decrease the pressure, air moves in. Greater than. Pressure outside is greater than the pressure inside, and the air moves from bigger to smaller, greater pressure to lower pressure. And then pressure outside is less than the pressure inside, and the air moves from greater to smaller, so the air moves out. Okay, and I have no idea how long this video is already, so we will start with this next slide, the middle of page 8, the beginning of the next video. I had it posted. Okay, page 8, 6 through 8. And this has been AMP2, lecture test 4, video 4, pages 6 through 8. Next we'll do video 5, note set, and we'll start in the middle of page 8. All right, thank you as always for tuning in. No, I said all the rest of it. The education must go on. Dr. J out. Have a good one.